I am with How To Taxes, and I'm here to help you fill out your 2023 tax return with line-by-line instructions. At the top of the form, put your name, your spouse's name, your address, your social security numbers. If you want $3 to go to the presidential election campaign fund, you or your spouse can check a box. Under the filing status section, check the box applicable to you. In our example, it is married filing jointly. Under the digital assets section, check the appropriate box. In our example, it is no. Check any boxes that apply to you under the standard deduction age blindness section. Under the dependent section, since you have a 13-year-old son, you will fill out his name, his last name, his social security number, his relationship to you, which is a son, and check the box that he qualifies for the child tax credit. On line 1A, put your wages. You can find this information in box 1 of Form W-2. If you and your spouse both have a W-2, add them together and put the amount on this line. In our example, it is $74,400. I am going to skip lines 1B through 1I as they don't affect most of the people that will be watching this video, but I will circle back to them at the end of the video. On line 2A, put any tax-exempt interest that you received on a Form 1099 INT. On line 2B, put any taxable interest. In our example, you received $1,600 from your bank on a Form 1099 INT. Since you had taxable interest of over $1,500, you need to file Schedule B. There are some other instances where you'd have to file Schedule B, and I have listed them here. At the top of Schedule B, put your names and the Social Security number of the taxpayer. Under Part 1, Line 1, put the name of the bank and the amount of your interest, which is $1,600. Carry that amount down to lines 2 and 4 and answer the questions in Part 3 regarding foreign accounts and trusts. In our example, the answers are no. On line 3A, put your qualified dividends, and on line 3B, your ordinary dividends. You will find this information on Form 1099 DIV. On line 4A, put any IRA distributions and the taxable amount on line 4B. On line 5A, any pensions or annuities distributions, and then the taxable amount on line 5B. You will find this information on Form 1099-R. On line 6A, put the Social Security benefits that you received from Box 5 of your SSA Form 1099. On line 6B, put your taxable portion. I do have another video that explains how to determine how much is taxable, and I will put the link at the bottom of this video. But in short, you would add half of your Social Security income plus your other income. If it's over $25,000, you are single, or $32,000, you are filing jointly, some of it will be taxable. The box on line 6C is for lump sum election. By checking this box, if some of your Social Security benefits are taxable and they include a lump sum from a prior year, you may be able to reduce the amount of the taxable portion. On line 7, put any capital gain or loss that you have. An example of this would be when you would sell a stock or a bond. Typically, you have to file Schedule D and Form 8949 with this, but there are some examples where this is not required, and I have listed them here. On line 8, put any additional income that you have from Schedule 1, line 10. Though in our example, we do not have any additional income, some of the more common ones are alimony received, which would put on line 2A. If you had your own business, you would report the income on Schedule C and carry it to line 3 of Schedule 1. If you had a rental property, you would report the income on Schedule E and carry it to line 5 of Schedule 1. And if you had any unemployment compensation, it gets reported on line 7. Note that line 1 is taxable refunds or credits from state and local income taxes, and you may have received a Form 1099-G from your state or local government. You would only report this if you itemized in the year that you paid the taxes. In our example, you are a teacher of the 5th grade and you had educator expenses of $300. Report those on line 11 of Part 2 of Schedule 1. Total this amount down on line 26 of Schedule 1 and carry this amount to line 10 of your Form 1040. On line 11, subtract line 10 from 9 to arrive at $75,700 for your adjusted gross income. On line 12, we will put the larger of the standard or itemized deductions. In our example, the standard deduction will be more, and you can find the amount to the box to the left. In our example, it would be $27,700 as you are married filing jointly. I have attached Schedule A so that you can see some of the more common itemized deductions, which are medical and dental expenses, taxes that you paid, mortgage and investment interest, and charitable contributions. On line 14, add lines 12 and 13 together, which will be $27,700 as you do not have a qualified business income deduction. On line 15, subtract line 14 from 11 to arrive at $48,000 for your taxable income. Next, we will calculate your tax using the tax tables that begin on page 65 of the Form 1040 instructions. Since your taxable income is at least $48,000 but less than $48,050 and you are married filing jointly, your tax will be $5,323. Carry that amount to line 16 of your return. Line 17 will be left blank as you do not have taxes from Part 1 of Schedule 2, which include the alternate minimum tax and the excess advance premium tax credit repayment. The alternate minimum tax arises from a situation where an individual has significant deductions against their regular tax, which creates a situation where their economic income is much greater than their taxable income. This is pretty rare, so I'm not going to go through the calculation on Form 6251. On line 18, add lines 16 and 17 together to arrive at $5,323. On line 19, we will put your child tax credit. We will calculate this amount on Schedule 8812. On line 1, put the amount from line 11 of your Form 1040, which is $75,700 in our example. Carry that down to line 3 as none of the stipulations on line 2 apply to us. On line 4, put 1 as you have one qualified child under the age of 17. Multiply that by 2,000 to arrive at 2,000 on line 5. Since we do not have any other dependents, we will leave lines 6 and 7 blank. On line 8, add lines 5 and 7 together to arrive at $2,000. On line 9, put the amount from the table to the left, which is $400,000 in our example since we're married filing jointly. On line 10, we will subtract line 9 from line 3, which in our example will be 0, so thus line 11 will be 0 as well. On line 12, since line 8 is more than line 11, we will subtract line 11 from line 8, which will be $2,000 in our example. On line 13, we will enter the amount from Credit Limit Worksheet A. You can find this worksheet on page 4 of the 8812 instructions. On line 1, put the amount from line 18 of your Form 1040. On line 3, subtract line 2 from line 1. Since we don't have any amounts from line 2, line 3 will be $5,323. Line 4 will be left blank as we do not have any amounts from the items listed. Line 5, we will subtract line 4 from line 3 to arrive at $5,323. We will enter this on line 13 of our Schedule 8812. On line 14, we're going to enter the smaller of line 12 or 13, which is $2,000 in our example. We will enter this on line 19 of our Form 1040. Line 20 will be left blank as we do not have any of the credits from Schedule 3, line 8. Some of the more common credits are the credit for child and dependent care expenses from Form 2441 and the education credits, which you would fill out Form 8863. On line 21, add lines 19 and 20 together to arrive at $2,000. On line 22, subtract line 21 from line 18 to arrive at $3,323. Line 23 will be left blank in our example as we do not have any other taxes from Schedule 2, line 21. The most common one would be self-employment tax. On line 24, add lines 22 and 23 together to arrive at $3,323 for your total tax. On line 25A, we will put your federal income tax withholding. You can find this amount in box 2 of your Form W-2. In our example, it is $5,000. On 25B, put any withholding that you had from Form 1099. On 25C, from any other forms, an example would be Form W-2G. Add all your withholding together to arrive at $5,000 on line 25D. On line 26, you will put any of the estimated tax payments and any amount that you applied from your 22 return to the 23 return. In our example, this is 0. On line 27, put the earned income credit. In our example, our income is too high. The earned income credit is for low-income taxpayers who can receive a credit for more than the amount that they actually paid in tax. In the situation I have presented here, married filing jointly with one child, the maximum amount of adjusted gross income that you could have in 2023 and still receive the earned income credit is $53,120. Line 28 is the additional child tax credit. You can receive an additional amount of child tax credit even though your tax is 0, and you would calculate to see if you qualify on Schedule 8812. If you are taking the American Opportunity Education Credit, the amount that is refundable is reported on line 29 from Form 8863, line 8. On line 31, you'll report any other credits that you received or any additional payments from Schedule 3, line 15. The most common one is if you paid an amount with your extension to file your tax return. On line 32, add lines 27, 28, 29, and 31, which in our example is 0. And on line 33, add up your total payments, which is $5,000. If you have an overpayment, report that amount on line 34. In our example, it is $1,677. If you want it refunded to you, put that amount on line 35A. If you want it applied to your next year's tax, put that amount on line 36. If you want your refund directly deposited into your bank account, complete lines 35B through D. If you don't want it directly deposited into your bank account, cross off lines 35B and D, and the IRS will send you a check directly. Note that there's a box to the left of line 35A. You would only check this box if you want your refund deposited into more than one bank account. If you owe money, the amount will go on line 37. If you owe an estimated tax penalty, this will be put on line 38. Remember to sign, date, and put your occupation at the bottom of the form. As I stated at the beginning of the video, I will now circle back to lines 1B through line 1I. On line 1B, report any household employee wages that you received that were not reported to you on a Form W-2. Your employer isn't required to provide you a Form W-2 if they paid you less than $2,600 in 2023. On line 1C, report any tip income that was not reported on line 1A of your Form 1040. On line 1D, enter any Medicaid waiver payments that were not reported to you on your Form W-2. On line 1E, put your taxable dependent care benefits. The amount would be reported to you in box 10 of your Form W-2. First, complete Form 2441 to see if you can exclude part of all of your benefits. On line 1F, put your employer-provided adoption benefits. This would be reported to you in box 12 of your Form W-2 with a code T. You would then complete Form 8839 to see if any of them are taxable. On line 1G, enter your wages from Form 8919, line 6. These are wages that you earned from your employer, where your employer was treating you as an independent contractor by mistake and they should have been wages reported to you on a Form W-2. On line 1H, enter any other earned income. One example is strike or lockout benefits. If you are taking the earned income credit, you may elect to include non-taxable combat pay in your calculation because this might arrive at a higher earned income credit for you. If you elect to do this, report your non-taxable combat pay on line 1I. This wraps it up for all the lines on the 23 Form 1040. Thank you for watching. I am from How to Taxes. Subscribe for future tax videos.